What's the biggest shock you've ever had? Maybe coming home to find your house burgled? Maybe coming home to find your house filled with bouquets of flowers? That might be an even bigger shock. Anything that's totally unexpected will shock us. Today I want to think about what must have been one of the greatest shocks ever. A few days after Jesus died, some of his friends came to his tomb. I suppose in today's terms we might say they were paying their respects. But when they arrive at his tomb, they get the most unbelievable shock. They find it lying open. Can you imagine going to your friend's grave only to find it broken apart and lying open? They go inside to investigate, and then they get another shock. There's an angel sitting there. The angel tells them not to panic, and then he tells them about the person they've come looking for, Jesus. Jesus had been crucified a few days before. The angel tells them he has risen. The Gospel of Mark, chapter 16, verse 6. Jesus had claimed to be the Saviour of the world, and to be able to rescue people from sin, and to make us right with God. He claimed to be God, and to have power over death. If his death was the end of him, all those claims come to nothing. They're worthless, they're false. Jesus can do nothing to help us. Trusting in him is useless. That's what it must have seemed like for these women as they come to the tomb. They had hoped that Jesus was the Saviour of the world. They had believed that he was. But now all their hopes are dashed. And then, in the midst of their sorrow and grief, this messenger from heaven tells them, he has risen. It sounds unbelievable. It's incredible. People just don't rise from the dead. And yet, Jesus was no ordinary person. He had already raised other people from the dead. So maybe with Jesus, it could be true. What evidence does the angel give that this announcement, he has risen, was true? The evidence he gives them is the empty tomb. He says, he is not here. See the place where they laid him. He says, see. He's showing them the empty spot. Some of these women had seen Jesus being buried. They knew they were in Jesus' tomb, but Jesus wasn't there. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is essential to the Christian faith. The whole of Christianity hangs on this one event. Christianity stands or falls with this. One of the other New Testament writers said, if Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile. If there's any way to wriggle out of the fact that Jesus rose from the dead, the whole of Christianity is a waste of time. But if there's no way to wriggle out of the fact that Jesus rose from the dead, Christianity is the most important thing in the world. Jesus is the most important person who has ever lived. He is the Saviour of the world, the one who's able to rescue people from their sins and to make us right with God. Ever since the time of the resurrection, people have tried to prove that it didn't happen, but none of them have managed to prove it. The tomb was empty. Jesus did rise. And so he is the one who's able to bring all those who trust in him to heaven.